Welcome, everybody. Happy Thursday or Friday, depending on where you're joining us from in the world. My name's Meg. I am part of Power to Fly's virtual hosting team, and I am super excited to be joining you to help you, help introduce you to the new Relic team and talk a little bit more about parental leave. So as we are getting into today's chat, I just want to cover a couple quick housekeeping items. If you've joined us for a chat previously, this will all be kind of old hat to you, so my apologies, but we'll try and get through it quickly so we can get on to the main event. So like all of our virtual events, today is all about you. It's about our attendees. We want to make sure that you all have the chance to participate. So you are welcome to do that in a couple different ways. You can come off mute to ask questions, add comments. If we're going over one of your questions, you can add context to it. But if you do come off mute at any point during today's session, you will show up on the live recording. So one thing I like to highlight is that if you have any kind of privacy concerns or just, don't feel like showing off your bedhead to the world, don't worry about it. You can still participate. Instead of coming off mute, you can put any questions or comments you have for our speakers into the Zoom group chat. And if you would like to, kind of maintain deep cover, don't want anyone to know you're here, that's okay. All you have to do is DM me your comments or your questions, and I will raise them to the panel and keep you anonymous. Like I said, this session is being recorded. So everyone that registered for today's session, regardless of whether you attend or you stay for 5 minutes, you stay for the full 60, you dip in and out, or even if you signed up but didn't make it today, hi from the past, future watchers, everybody that registered is going to get an email. It'll be there in about 1 to 2 business days, and it will have a link to where you can rewatch this session on our website. Now, if Bridie or Michael says something just mind-blowing, you think it's amazing, you can't wait to share it with your friends or your family or a coworker, you do not have to wait the 1 to 2 business days. You can head on over to our YouTube channel. We have 2. There's a basic one and then our dedicated Chat and Learn channel. So this video will be posted to that Chat and Learn channel, usually within about 5 to 15 minutes of the end of today's session. So like I said, if you do want to add comments or context or ask questions of our speakers, you can always write them in the chat. And then one of the other things I recommend is that you keep up with us on social. So like I said, I mentioned our YouTube channel. A really great idea, especially if you attend even just a couple of these chats a month, is to subscribe to our channel. It is a great way to make sure that you stay up to date on these great events without worrying that maybe you haven't registered or you aren't sure what, if we have like one that comes up after you've checked the pages. So I always recommend that. You can also keep up with us on our other social media channels. We are at Power to Fly on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And last but not least, if you would like to join us and share your smiling, maskless faces with us safely, please feel free to. There's no need to be Insta perfect. I think I'm on day 3 of dry shampoo. Non-traditional workspaces, furry coworkers, child supervisors, all of this stuff is welcome and encouraged. We want you to come as you are and have fun learning with Power to Fly today. So I'm really excited to introduce you to our speakers. First up, we have Bridie Kennedy. Bridie is a sales leader at New Relic, and she's focused on helping engineering teams build better software and improve their time to market. Bridie is Sydney-based and has worked in technology sales for 10 years in both individual contributor and leadership roles. And Bridie believes that working mothers are the secret weapon of the corporate world. When she's not busy chasing after an energetic toddler, she likes relaxing with a good book. So welcome, Bridie. We're so happy to have you today.
Hi, Meg. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And look, I think I'm like a lot of women who have spent their 20s building a career, being successful, maybe getting promoted, and you sort of get to that point where everything's sort of starting to take off. But it's also the time that maybe you're getting married and you're thinking about starting a family, if you're sort of in that traditional family sort of unit or not. And I think that's, like, for me, it was really scary because I was like, how do I juggle being a mother and having a career and being ambitious? So for me, it was a bit of a leap into the unknown and a bit scary, to be honest. So I'm really excited to be here today to speak to the people that are joining and share some of the stuff that I picked up and hopefully make them feel a bit more at ease that it is possible. Yes, it is a bit scary, but you can do it. So really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Bridie. So joining Bridie from the New Relic team, we also have Michael Davis with us. Michael is an enterprise account exec focused on helping organizations build better software and delivering world-class digital customer experiences. Prior to joining New Relic, Michael worked for 10 years in technology sales, as well as consulting roles at Qualtrics, Experian, and KPMG. Outside of work, Michael enjoys spending time with his wife and 1-year-old daughter and keeps fit by playing basketball and the occasional visit to the gym. So welcome, Michael, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Meg. Yeah, really excited to be here. Like Bridie said, it's been an interesting year, to say the least. Not least because of everything that everybody's gone through with COVID, but being a new parent on top of that has come with a lot of challenges, but also has been really rewarding. So yeah, it's for me, my world as it in the last kind of year has very much turned upside down in a good way. But yeah, it's also been quite challenging, and more recently, I've been helping my wife, my partner, kind of get back into full-time work after a year's paternity leave. So yeah, look forward to the discussion today.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And actually, I'm looking at your the bit about your 1-year-old daughter. Was she a quarantine baby, or did you guys make it like just before that like strange cutoff period in March last year?
Australia has had a lot of strange cutoffs, depending on what state you're in. We're actually back in lockdown again, but yeah, she actually came, let's just say between quarantines. So would come out of an isolation period, and I was able to go to the hospital, but it was no visitors. So yeah, I was able to be there, but couldn't have anybody else there. But yeah, it was all fine. But yeah, a lot of her first year was very much kind of with me working from home, and yeah, and practicing social distancing and the like.
Wow. Yeah, I can't even imagine it. The idea of being a first-time parent at all seems kind of terrifying. So adding into that a global pandemic, I'm sure, there was a lot of growth and a lot of learning done in your household last year.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we jump into the questions, I just want to highlight before we do the fact that obviously Michael and Bridie are here as part of the New Relic team. So the page that you're looking at right now, that's what New Relic's company page looks like on powertofly.com. I've put a link into the chat here that you can click to take you directly to this page. What you're going to see when you go here, so you can check out, company info. You can take a look at the events tab that'll tell you events that New Relic has participated in with us in the past. You can see those recordings, and you can also see events that they're going to participate with us in the future. So, our virtual job fairs, our chat and learns like today, or our mini summits that we hold every month. So definitely check those out. The other thing that you can do, obviously, is click the open jobs listing. The slide in front of you says 1223, but currently there's 1309, so 1,309 roles posted with us. So if you are interested in jobs with New Relic, definitely take a look at those there. You can filter within that page to see, just stuff that would apply to your skill set or your title that you're looking for. The other thing I want to highlight for you is that at the top of this page, in the upper right-hand corner, there's going to be a button. It's a big pink button that says follow. Clicking that button is going to do a couple of things for you, but basically what it does is it acts like your friend at the company. It tells New Relic that you are interested in working with them even before you fill out an application. And it also keeps you updated when New Relic posts new roles. So you don't have to worry that, you don't have to keep coming back and visiting job boards, and you don't have to worry that, you're going to fall off their radar because they're not going to fall off yours. It's just a really great tool to use for yourself. And you can follow and unfollow as many companies as you like on Power to Fly, and you can follow and unfollow at will. So, do it 6 times in a week, whatever you'd like. But obviously, I recommend that you follow New Relic. They were actually one of my accounts when I was still in the talent advocacy position. And so I can tell you from experience and from hosting them on virtual job fairs and stuff, it's a really great dynamic team. So if you are, whether you're actively seeking right now, or even if you're just kind of curious and want to see what's out there, I definitely recommend you follow New Relic and check out, get some more information about, about their team and about their company culture. All right, so last thing before we dive in, today, these are what you're seeing in front of you are the principal themes that we're going to try and cover in today's conversation. Now, The way we got to these was through conversations with Bridie and Michael ahead of today's chat, as well as by looking at the questions list of all the questions that you guys submitted before today's session. So we tried to kind of distill those down and arrange them into somewhat of a conversational format. So we're going to try and hit these high points here. But if you took time out of your day to be with us live while we record this and while we live stream, we want to make sure that the time you spend with Power to Fly is well worth it. So if you're here and you have a question that you want to get answered, please, please, please feel free to ask it. I ask that you not interrupt Bridie or Michael, but I get paid to fill the silence. So please feel free to interrupt me if you have a question that you would like to ask. I'll also hold space a couple different times throughout the session in case anybody is maybe a little bit shy or I'm a little bit too motor mouthed and you don't feel like you can jump in. So we're going to try and cover these questions today, but just so you're aware, we want you to drive the conversation today. So if you have a question you'd like to ask, please feel free to raise it. You can do it via audio, in the chat, or by DMing me. So we're going to talk a little bit about some tactical steps for preparing for the parental leave, as well as how you can kind of best optimize your return to work. We're going to talk a little bit about how to balance being ambitious in your career as well as with parenthood, because I think that's a very common binary mindset that a lot of us have, especially women have, where you can have it all, but it's all in one spot or all in the other. It's not really in both. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about how to confidently set those boundaries to avoid guilt at home and at work, feeling like you're not really living up to your expectations here, or you're falling behind on this, in this field. So we're going to try and touch on these subjects today. To get us started, let's see, I'm going to go to one of the first questions that we were asked, and this one came up actually a couple different ways. This person wanted to know, when should we communicate our need for parental leave to our managers? And do you have any tips for that conversation? So obviously with where women are concerned, there might be a little bit more of an outward kind of like an outward time clock that seems to be ticking, because how long can you go before someone's going to ask a question or notice? But I'm really interested to get both of your opinions on this. Bridie, would you like to start?
Yeah, I'd love to. Oh, this is a really interesting one. And having been in the position myself, it's pretty daunting, because you started a company, and for me, I was probably 18 months into my career at New Relic. So, I mean, that's, in the scheme of things, that's probably a pretty long time, but I was a bit scared, to be honest, about broaching the subject, which in retrospect now, I'm like, I shouldn't have been worried. So probably something that I'd like to say to everyone, just, it's okay. And it's a great and happy time in your life. And I think managers and leaders, we sort of maybe preempt how they're going to react. But in my experience, they were just so happy for me and pumped that I was going to have a baby and start a family. So really, I shouldn't have been worried. But I think in terms of the timing, it's really a personal thing. And my advice would be, do it when you're ready. And actually, for women, with your first baby, you might not even have a bump for 6 months. So you could really fly under the radar. And for me, I think I told my manager when I was 18 weeks pregnant. And then the reason for that is just because I wanted to make sure everything was all healthy and fine before I spilled the news. But that's totally a personal thing. But one major thing that I would recommend, and that was really important to me, was I wanted to be the person to tell my boss. And I think you've just got to be careful about who you speak to in the workplace. If you're friends with people on social media and you're broadcasting it, I think from a respect and a courtesy point of view, it's good to sort of keep that under wraps until you have time to have that personal conversation with them. That's really it. And because there's other things that you might not consider, like inter-company dynamics that maybe they want to tell people at a certain time, or manage that messaging depending on what's happening in the company.
Yeah, I think you make a very good point, is that this timing might be different for everybody, regardless of what the I would say the physical changes might be. So thank you for highlighting that. Michael, what's your opinion on this? I'm interested to see it both from because we try and approach it as mothers and fathers, or just as caregivers in general, but obviously there's different stakes if you're not the one birthing the child. So what's your opinion on this?
Well, I had a very different experience, not just in the fact that I'm the father and not the mother, but I actually had to break the news to the business while I was interviewing. because I was approached by New Relic's talent team, and I wasn't actually looking for a job. In fact, in my own mind, I wanted a really kind of stable year, no big changes. There's going to be enough change in my life. This is before we even knew what COVID really kind of was. I mean, it was in the news, but I hadn't even thought about that. So for me, I think I started the interview process in late January, maybe early February. I started the job in April, and I pretty much kind of broached the topic on the first conversation I had with my hiring manager. So, and part of that was just, that first interview was a conversation just to get to know each other. And I think that was a real kind of pivot point in my decision to join New Relic, because my manager at the time just made it seem so matter of fact. It's like, you're having a child, so what? People have children. We happen to also have very good parental leave policies here at New Relic, and he wasn't selling me on the job, but he was definitely, without knowing it, selling me on the culture, and just knowing about the entitlements and how everybody kind of approaches it, and the fact that he was okay with me joining a team only to take leave 2 months into a new job. I think spoke volumes for the organization. So that was great. That was a great experience.
Yeah, I completely agree. It does speak really loudly to like the culture of the company and how supportive they're going to be, both for you as an employee, but also, balancing your personal and professional life. If they're not really supportive of that other half of you, that it's, it can be really difficult to try and maintain any kind of balance there. So yeah, I love that. So awesome. Okay, so this next person had wanted to know, in more of a, planning ahead process. They said, I'm going to be going on leave shortly. What are some best practices for creating a leave plan that is scalable? I want to make sure this transition is smooth as possible for the colleagues that will take care of my responsibilities while I'm away.
I think, Michael, that was one you were going to say.
I think I'm going to speak less about kind of the detail of it, the tactical stuff around kind of, everyone's got their own systems. Typically when I go on vacation, I'll prepare kind of a spreadsheet, a bit of a handover, all the links, try to get my notes in order. I think for me with parental leave, it was probably more what I didn't do or what I could have done better that I'd like to share. And I think, what I would have done differently, especially being so new to the company, is really just communicated probably more with my manager around expectations for when I returned, because there's nothing worse. And I think that's one of the big themes, right? Is how to balance boundaries, so you're not feeling guilt both at home and at work. And to avoid that kind of dreaded feeling when you're about to come back and you've got kind of 2 weeks left, or it might even be longer for some people, you start to kind of have that anticipation or nerves. And I think a lot of that is just due to uncertainty around what's going to happen when you get back. And I think one thing that I probably could have owned more, and it's something I think you really have to own, it's not just up to your manager, it's just to understand, look, what are the first 4 weeks going to look like when I get back? What are the first 8 weeks going to look like when I get back? I, at this point, had only had remote interactions with my team and my manager, apart from one interview before COVID. But I think, the circumstances meant that I actually probably had to be more proactive about that, because I kind of came back. I'd done 2 months of a lot of onboarding. I hadn't really kind of had much, customer or external facing work, which is basically what my whole role is. But at times, maybe kind of 4 or 5 weeks in, my manager was like, okay, so, how many customers have you kind of conversations with? Have you gotten through this list? And I was like, I'm actually still kind of working on onboarding. So that's a really long-winded way of saying, have a plan for when you come back, have a 4-week plan, an 8-week plan, whatever it is you need in order to feel comfortable, because that will help kind of alleviate a lot of that nervous kind of energy before you actually come back, so you can enjoy your full period that you're on parental leave.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think you're totally right. Like the idea of things thinking like, oh yeah, this will all be fine, and we'll just onboard you back again. Like having the forethought to think of like what are some of the, not necessarily milestones, but like things that you want to make sure happen in your first 4 weeks back or in your first 8 weeks back. That kind of forethought can definitely help take a lot of the guesswork out of what happens when you come back, because you think it's going to be just a real smooth transition and it'll be great. But like, you're probably going to be a bit sleep deprived. You're probably going to be making like entirely new adjustments to this tiny thing that's like ruling your house now. So, the idea that you can kind of set yourself up for success with a little bit of pre-planning, it doesn't necessarily mean everything's going to go to plan. It probably won't, but at least you have that framework to fall back on or to start with and say, hey, I've been back for 5 weeks and I didn't get any of the things done that we wanted to get done in the first 4. Can we reassess the 8-week plan now? So yeah, I think that's really great. Bridie, did you have anything different? Oh, sorry, Michael, I didn't mean to interrupt
I
you.
was just going to say, just to add to that as well, just looking at it from your manager's perspective, right? Their working world hasn't stopped while you've been away. In my manager's case, at that point in time, he was directly managing kind of 10 or 11 different people. So it's really difficult to kind of, from a manager's perspective, to track where you're at. In my case, it was in my onboarding process. And I just think having that kind of, as you say, framework to fall back on is really helpful for your manager as well. It makes their life a lot easier.
Yeah, I love that. And you're right, that open communication and having that, having that transparency with your manager or your team, whatever your setup looks like, is really key. It definitely helps. It helps make a lot of things a lot easier, right? Bridie, what would you like to say about this?
I agree with exactly what you said. I think communication is the key, really. Understanding, like, to align on the priorities and expectations, and then also as a as a person going on leave, being proactive to sort of identify where are their gaps, where do I need help, and that sort of thing. So I think, yeah, just communicating and being honest is really important.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, I was just thinking back to Michael, what you had said about, the working world doesn't stop just because you're not there. That can be something that's either both very comforting to somebody or can be kind of scary. This person had written in asking how to make sure that your employer or boss doesn't forget you and your past performance. Now, this person's speaking from a position of like worrying about how they might be pretty easily replaced, but it's also, kind of important to realize that you're trying to make plans for where you're going to sync back up with a machine that's not going to stop running just because you're gone. So Bridie, did you ever have this concern when you were going on parental leave, or is this not anything that you've had to deal with in your career?
It most certainly was a concern for me. I went on leave for 8 months. So it's different to America and it's different to other places in the world. Like Australia, we can take up to 12 months off parental leave for and your job is still there for you. So I took 8 months, and yeah, it was definitely a concern for me. I'm like, what if they forget me? What if they don't remember how awesome I am? So the way I got around it, and this obviously depends on your personal circumstances, but I live quite close to the office. So I'd keep in touch with my manager. If you need help with, hiring, I'll come in and help you interview people. And then I, chuck my baby in the pram and bring her into the office, which is really great because, it sort of creates that connection and people go, oh, this is what you've been doing for 8 months. So it was really fun. And, thanks to my colleagues who looked after my baby and, fed her a bottle and changed her nappy for a couple of hours while I was having meetings. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm trying to think I don't think that there's really a better productivity flex than like I made an entire person. So, the way to go for that. No, I think you're right. It's definitely something that's a concern. Even if you're just kind of worried that you'll kind of get rusty or like fall out of the swing of things. And it's really definitely worth highlighting, like you said, Australia has really great parental leave laws. A lot of them seem very decadent from the American perspective, which is a sad commentary on the state of things. But you're right. Not everybody has that really lovely cushion of saying like, hey, we understand this is a huge change in your life. You should take time to get used to this. So that's really wonderful that, you had that time, as well as like we talked about earlier, kind of that open communication with your team and your manager to say like, hey, I'm adjusting pretty well. And if you guys need help on, a couple projects, you need help on this, like, let me know. So I love that. Michael, did you have any of the same concerns when you went on parental leave?
Probably slightly different situation because I was very new to the business. But yeah, so and also we were also the office was closed, so we were in COVID. So I didn't obviously have the luxury of being able to kind of come in and keep in touch face to face. But yeah, I made sure that I was I sent things like photographs to people I knew. I was still getting to know a lot of people, so I didn't want to kind of spray the whole business with baby photos when a lot of people probably still didn't know who I was. But yeah, I kind of kept in touch that way. Made sure I had time for a few phone conversations with my manager. It was nice to. I remember just getting out of the house and going for a big long walk around the parks near me and just having a conversation. I think a lot of people did the whole COVID power walking thing. So yeah, just made sure I kept in touch that way. But yeah, I probably not to the same extent as Bridie.
No, I think you're right. I think that's wonderful. And it is good to remember that, keeping your hand in doesn't necessarily mean you have to be there physically. You have to show up, kid in tow, to remind people what you got going on. So I think that's a really good point to make. If you have those connections and have like your work buddies at the company, share what you're doing. Like, good news travels fast, and people love babies. They love baby pictures. They love all that stuff. So yeah, super awesome. Okay, so in terms of that comeback, what did either of you have any experience with like really setting expectations for your employers or your colleagues when you were coming back? Because regardless of whether this is a child that you are giving birth to or a child you're welcoming into your home, it's pretty logical to think that some of your priorities are going to change a bit once this huge change happens in your household. So were there any ways that you guys found, especially useful in tackling this?
Yeah, I think like, again, it comes down to communication and sort of creating those boundaries. So my team, I lead a team of 5 people. So they sort of know that from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock, 7 p.m., that's the witching hour in my house. So I'm like, you can call me, but you might have a screaming toddler in the background who I'm trying to like wrangle into the bath. So yeah, like I'm free after that if you want to have a chat. But just, making it known that that's not a great time for me. And it's time that I'm spending, with my daughter and my husband. And I think that's it, right? Like just saying that this is what's going on for me so that they can empathize and we can sort of make a plan around that. But yeah, it's pretty simple.
Yeah, I've gone through a lot of the same things. I'm child free by choice, but I've gone through a lot of the same things with coworkers that have kids, where I can hear some things going on in the background, and instead of just being like, oh, I'm sure you have to go do that, I usually just ask like, do you need to go? If you do, it's fine. We can, jump back on in 15. And it's kind of surprising the number of times that you hear those like blood curdling screams and they're like, no, everything's fine. Like, parents get to that point where you can recognize like true distress from like just like unrealistic and wild screams. So yeah, I think that's a really good point, kind of telling people where you are and here's what my situation is, so as long as we kind of avoid this time of day, I can fit you in and that's not a problem. Michael, how about you? Did you have some of the same issues with trying to set up what your daily schedule was going to be like, or ways to like, kind of reprioritize your expectations from your manager?
No, no, not really. I think, yeah, as Bridie said, just kind of communicating. I'm pretty lucky. I think a lot of people in my team, including my manager, are kind of going through a similar life stage, right? Brad, my manager, shout out to Brad, you're on, he's probably about 4 years ahead of me going through the same thing. So he's got like, I think a 5-year-old and 3-year-old. There's at least 2 others in my team with young children. So I think there's a critical mass of us so that we just kind of all get it. And we're pretty lucky in that respect. But yeah, I just emphasize that communication is the big thing because, becoming a parent for the first time, obviously the child, a big part of becoming a parent, but there's all sorts of other things going on in your life. It's feeling like kind of, I'm living dog years at the moment, just how much change there is. And just communicating, letting people know in advance. I literally just moved house yesterday. We had to kind of upgrade from an apartment to a house with a bit more space, which I think a lot of people are doing during COVID. But I just told my manager, a week in advance, not even that much in advance, and he was absolutely cool with it and really accommodating. Yeah, it's just about kind of that two-way communication. I'd say it's as simple as that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's really great that they were able to, kind of flex with you because you're right. It's not just changes in one area of your life. I mean, there's going to be changes to your relationship with the other people in your house and who's taking on, what responsibilities. There's going to be changes all over the place. So yeah, I think that's a really great way to look at it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about when you return to work. There's a lot of, especially I hear this from a lot of working parents, both like my coworkers as well as my friends that have kids, that there's a lot of guilt a lot of the time, and that it kind of depends on what your state of mind is at the moment, whether that guilt is because you are focusing more on work than you are on time with family, or you're focusing more on family than you are on time at work. And some of that I feel like comes from a lot of like that comparison thing, right? Like I can't deliver as much as some of my coworkers without children can. Have either of you experienced this at all? And if so, how did you deal with it?
Massively. I think. Sorry, we're going to jump in there, Bridie, but yeah, this is something that I'm kind of going through every day. Just the way that I used to be able to work when it was all about me, and life was just about me. And even though my wife was here, it was pretty flexible. She's obviously busy in her own right. It's tough to make that adjustment from someone who can just work late into the night, stay back in the office, get up early. And it's not just work, it's the routine around work, getting exercise in the morning, all that type of stuff, which makes you more productive and makes you feel like who you are at work. That kind of goes out the window. Likewise, when you're, you know, working extra long hours because you've got like a deadline or a deal or something you need to get out the door, and you know that your partner has been basically doing the heavy lifting for a week, you do feel pretty guilty. And I guess for me, it's just really just about accepting, and just knowing that in the case of work's not going to go away. Just stepping back and, like it's going to sound funny, but breathing exercises and stuff at times have been pretty helpful. Or a walk. For me, my kind of go-to strategy is just to go for a walk, find some green space, go for a walk. If you have that luxury to have parks near your house, and that just kind of resets you, and it makes you realize, with a bit of perspective, that if I do not get this thing out the door in the next 15 minutes, is it really going to be the end of the world? And the reality is that, 9 times out of 10, it's not. So yeah, I think to answer the question, it's just to kind of have those on both sides, on the guilt at home and the guilt regarding work. It's just to be able to kind of step back and have a bit of time to yourself, even if it's 5 minutes around the block, or just go into another room to kind of reset. That's been really, really helpful for me.
Yeah, I think that's one of the crucial things, right? Like those feelings of guilt and stuff, like this is unrelated to childcare. This is something that I talked with my therapist about, and that's one of the things she talks about is like those feelings of guilt, and they feel very overwhelming. But Michael, your tactic of dealing with it with like, kind of taking that breather, it's crucial. Those feelings usually don't last longer than 15 minutes. And so if you can kind of be, either sit it out or walk it out through that time, then you get to the point where your head is actually clear. You're not like overwhelmed with this emotion, and you can make those decisions. And you're right. There's times in your life where it's okay to work, work the long hours and have the balance of, who's taking care of the house or taking care of the family, kind of shift. But being able to have like that open communication with your partner is invaluable, especially when one of the factors of like, how much of that lift needs to be shouldered by which person is being dictated by somebody that you can't reason with. You can't say like, okay, but you need to let, just call. I get that you're hungry. If you can wait 5 minutes, I'll take care of it. And then we can, make dinner. kids don't understand that. I don't think I mean, I don't think I understood it past probably 25. I was still just like, no, I need food now. This is what's happening. So yeah, it's having that open communication and being able to step back from that and take that time to clear your head is huge. Bridie, did you follow any similar ideas to Michael, or did you have a different take on it?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that's really great advice from Michael. But like, I mean, I guess my perspective is like, life is an infinite game, right? Like this is just a point in time of our lives. And you don't win at careers, you don't win at parenthood. I don't know if anyone's read Simon Sinek's book, The Infinite Game, but it really gave me a lot of perspective on it that, yeah, it's just a point in time. And if I have those clear expectations with my work, with what they expect, and I deliver on that, then that's okay. But you've got to accept it and be flexible in yourself to know that there's going to be peaks and troughs of different things that come up. Maybe one week it's all on hands on deck because your kid's sick or you're sick. Daycare, lurgy that you get. But it just happens like that. And you've really just got to roll with it and know that it's not always going to be like this. And then the other thing I think is around boundaries. What I found, like, as a woman, I've always liked to multitask, but I think it's better almost to separate. When you're at work, you're at work. And then when you're at home, you're at home. And I know that's not always possible, particularly with COVID, but like my 2-year-old, she hates it when I'm on the phone. Like I'll be like, sending a Slack message and she's like, Mummy, she wants to play a game. She wants to play Angry Birds. She's like, let me play Angry Birds. I'm like, I'm busy doing this. So I try and just make sure that I finish my work, and then when I engage with her, that I'm fully present, because I think that can really create feelings of anxiety if you're trying to do both things at once. So if possible, try and just separate them.
Yeah, I think that's
totally
a really
agree with
good
that.
point. Yeah. Michael, so your child's a little bit younger than Bridie's, but do you have any like tips or anything for, kind of doing that remote work balance with a kid in the background? I know that it can kind of, I think this answer differs wildly just even from family to family, maybe even from child to child. But are there any things that you've had to, kind of navigate, like screaming kid in the background while you're on a Zoom call, or being pulled in like 3 different directions when you're trying to do work and kids and all this kind of stuff? Like, how did you handle that?
Yeah, daily on a daily basis. I think the first thing is just to kind of have your own space, but I obviously appreciate that not everybody has that luxury. We've just kind of made a move in order to facilitate that, because I think it's only going to become more of a juggling act as the children get older, or as the child gets older in my case. But because of that, because we were in a kind of quite a confined space for so long doing this whole remote work thing, and now we're back at it in Sydney, unfortunately, we've just been really good at planning and communicating. If anything, I think between me and my wife, I think it's actually kind of helped our relationship from a communication perspective, because we just have to do it in order to make things work. So at least the day before, I mean, we're not quite this awesome, so please don't think we're doing it every single Sunday, but we kind of like look at each other's calendars and go, hey, have you got, who's got the big meeting, who's got a big presentation to deliver, and then we kind of just map out, like, so tomorrow who's doing the daycare drop off pickup, and then so just basically have that really clear, so we're not springing on each other 5 minutes before. Obviously there's going to be certain things that come up and you have to be nimble with that. But yeah, to the extent that you can, just plan responsibilities. If you do have the luxury of having a partner, and obviously a bit difficult for single parents out there. But yeah, just communicating with your partner, planning responsibilities, and yeah, being patient. That's pretty much it.
I think, yeah, you're right. Patience is a key there. And it's, we like to think of it as a renewable resource. It may not seem like that at times. But yeah, I think you're right, that having that patience and trying to have that open communication with, whoever is part of this, caregiving process with you, is absolutely invaluable. Yeah. So, okay. So before we get going, we got about 10 minutes left in today's session before we kind of round out and go into some more details about New Relic. But I want to talk a little bit about professional development. So you've had the conversation with your manager, you've gone on your parental leave, and now either you're on your way back or you're starting to think about this. How can you really, what changes about your professional development and what maybe your plans are for yourself after you become a parent? I think that a lot of people had questions about how to stay motivated and how to make time for yourself outside of trying to level up at work. So do either of you have any thoughts that you'd like to just jump in on this?
Yeah, I can jump in, Michael. I think in terms of being ambitious in your career, I mean, that's obviously a personal thing, and maybe your priorities shift and you're like, well, actually home life is really hectic. I just want to stay where I am. I'm happy doing what I'm doing for however long until I've got a bit more brain space and, you know, energy and opportunity to think about a career change or sort of moving up the ladder. But for me, I think, I don't know, I guess I am quite an ambitious person. So I sort of came back to the office, and it was a case of speaking with my manager at the time. This is what I want to do with my career. This is where I think I'm at the moment. These are the gaps that I sort of see for myself, stopping me from all the things that I need to do to get to the next level. And yeah, I guess working with him and getting his feedback on it so that I could put together a plan that would help me get to the next step in my career. So it definitely hasn't slowed me down. In terms of personal development, I'd say audiobooks and like Spotify podcasts are the best, because you really can like sort of listen to that and, you know, do parental stuff. So I think that's been a real help to me. Yeah, I mean, go out and get it. If you want it, then that's great. If you don't and you just want to sort of stay where you are, then that's also okay.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key parts, especially for for women. You get a lot of that messaging, right? About like, well, you have to keep going in your career, and if you do want to be a mom, then you have to be the best mom there ever was. And it can feel really hard, right, to try and balance. You can now it's that idea that, right, if you're succeeding at home, then you're probably not succeeding at work, and it's not. It doesn't need to be that binary. It doesn't need to be that cut and dry. And I completely agree with you on like podcasts and audiobooks and stuff. There's a lot of time where either it's not necessarily downtime, but like think about all the other things that we marinate in throughout the day. Like I remember song lyrics from when I was in like fifth grade, but like I can't remember, what I had for breakfast today. But listening to podcasts, even if I'm not like taking in absolutely every single word that's being said, I'm still marinating in and passively like taking in like these ideas or these tips on time management, or how I can be like you said, like kind of have a different viewpoint on what I'm actually experiencing right now, and really have that paradigm shift. So that's so great. Michael, did you have anything you wanted to talk about with this?
No, I think I just might have dropped off for about 2 seconds there. So
Oh, no worries.
are we're discussing kind of resources or go to kind of.
Professional development, actually. We're talking about ways to kind of keep your career like momentum going, especially if you come back from parental leave, and how kind of your priorities might change, but maybe your goals don't necessarily change. It's just the methods you're going to reach to get there. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think mentoring is a big one. Just kind of go out and get yourself the right mentor in work and life, I guess. I mean, if you're talking about kind of becoming a working parent, then it's probably good that you'd have a mentor who's gone through the same thing yourself. I'm just big on kind of getting experiences from other people who I trust and respect, and who I can kind of see a similar pathway to. So yeah, look, it doesn't have to necessarily be someone from work. For instance, I've got a cousin who is a pretty successful entrepreneur. I speak to him a lot for kind of advice on career development, and just life, I guess. So others as well, people I've worked with and for in the past who I remain in touch with. But yeah, it's always good to kind of have that lived experience be shared with you.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so one of the last questions I want to touch on before we jump into New Relic stuff. This person had talked about how they're looking for a new role right now, and they plan on needing parental leave in about like a year and a half to 2 years, based on when they're trying to plan their family. Um, when obviously, Michael, you were job hunting while you were anticipating having to go on parental leave, so you'll probably be, maybe who should touch on this first with. But are there different recommendations or any tips you have on either approaching the company's parental benefits, or things that you were really looking out for, red flags that you noticed? How did this process work for you? What were some of the things that you were looking out for when you were interviewing?
Yeah, I mean, in my case, I had the luxury of having a job. So I was, tapped on the shoulder, for want of a better expression. So in a way, I was able to kind of shop around and kind of get a vibe of that culture, or around parental leave. And New Relic was far and away kind of the best, not just in terms of the fact that, I think it's like 12 weeks fully paid, regardless of whether you're, the mother or the secondary care, or whatever the case may be. It's a blanket kind of policy. And I thought that was really good. But I also just look for, or in this particular case, there was one other organization that I was speaking to, or no, two at one point, but one main other, I guess, talent competitor that I was speaking to at the same time. And New Relic just kind of really stood out from the attitude, not just the policy, but I think just that kind of cultural feeling towards, family, parental leave, flexible work, all the things that you look for. Look, this might come down to individual managers. I just thought that the way that it was so matter of fact, like, yeah, parental leave, yeah, when people do that, everyone does that. We fully support it and go for it. 2 months in, fantastic. We'll pick it up when you get back. It was just so laid back, um, which was great. I really kind of connected with that.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And you're right. It does really differ. I mean, you could have the same information delivered two vastly different ways and get a completely different understanding of, what the company culture is really like about this, right? Like you're looking for some place that's not going to treat it like, um, like a problem. You want a company that's going to realize that you're a person with a life outside of work, and that if they're going to support you in a professional sense, they should be willing to support you in a personal sense as well. Bridie, what was your experience with this? Were you interviewing or at any point prior to having your daughter?
Yeah, this is really interesting. And look, I think Michael had the luxury of being tapped on the shoulder, but he's also got the luxury of being a man, which makes a big difference. No disrespect, Michael, but when there's a real thing, the motherhood penalty, and it's a real thing, and it's a real shame that women feel that they have to like sort of fly under the radar to ask about parental leave. And I think that's sort of shame on companies for making it that way, because it shouldn't be the case. But I 100% agree, and I have been in that position where I was interviewing, and this is prior to New Relic, and I was probably like, in my sort of late 20s, and I was like, well, maybe I will start thinking about having a family. And I felt really concerned about asking the question about leave and benefits, because I was like, oh, well, what if that does raise a red flag and they go, well, we don't want to hire this woman because she might leave us and go off and do something else. And yeah, so it is a real thing for sure. And probably my advice would be, if you don't feel comfortable talking to the hiring manager, which is totally understandable, speak to the talent person. Sinead in our team, I know it would be a confidential conversation, but also like companies like New Relic, we spruik those benefits. That's part of why you should come and join us, because we have all of those benefits, and we don't just pay lip service to them. They actually, we support parents going on leave. So I think if you're worried to ask, maybe it's not the right company.
Yeah, I think that's you made a lot of really good points there in a few short sentences. Because I mean, I've been in the working world for almost 20 years, and I remember point blank being told to not wear my engagement ring to interviews, because then it's usually an assumption. And like, even after, I didn't wear my wedding ring to interviews because it's that assumption that like, oh, well, you're married, so you must be on the baby track sometime soon, which of course, as you know, horrible mores dictate, is the death of your career. And so, yeah, it's definitely one of those things that it becomes it's a tricky, you know, kind of field to navigate. But yeah, you make a really good point, which is like, if you're uncomfortable asking, like I feel like we say this a lot, but like when you're in interviews, you are interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. So if you ask a question and the answer you get isn't really satisfactory, it's okay to follow that up. Like, oh, you know, what's your parental leave program like? And they're like, okay, well, you know, here's 3 weeks. We'll see you back. Okay, well, you know, what do you guys do if there's like, you know, more complications? Or what is your policy about, you know, in terms of adoption versus like, you know, having your own child physically? Like, is there a different, do you guys treat that differently? Is there parental leave? Does that cover, you know, mothers as well as fathers, or partners as well? You know, how does that work? And so being able to ask those questions, yeah, is like super key. Did either of you, you know, is there any kind of like a parental, like working parents group at New Relic that you guys are part of? Or is that, you know, is it more of like the whole company culture is involved in this, not just one specific group?
I'm not too sure, but I feel like if there isn't, there really should be. I don't know,
It's a good
Bridie.
idea. We don't have one. I think everyone sort of just, yeah, shares it with the whole company. But I think that's a good idea, Meg. We might have to set that up.
My apologies. I didn't mean to like, you know, push you guys into being like, no, we don't have one. But no, you're right. Like it's one of those things where I feel like a lot of times the companies that have them are because they needed them. Like it was not, the group was not being supported. And that's part of where, you know, the organization of it kind of comes about. But you're right. You guys have both made very good points that, you know, New Relic is like, when you have something you're proud of about your company, you tend to crow about it. So if they're not, you know, if the company that you're interviewing with isn't really talking about what their policies are, or they're not real forthcoming on that, that might be a red flag. You know, ask to speak to somebody else in the team that, you know, has recently done it, or see if they have like you know, an ERG that you can speak to about their experiences. Okay, so to lead us into a little bit more of about New Relic before we close out today, can we talk a little bit about how you feel like New Relic really advocates for that work-life balance or work-life integration? You know, we've talked a lot about it in terms of being a working parent, but are there any other ways or aspects of your lives that you feel like New Relic really helps support you personally as well as professionally?
I could take that one, Michael. New Relic, I think we, particularly after COVID or during COVID, since we're still in lockdown in Sydney, but I think we've really gotten serious about work-life balance and really serious about burnout and making sure that our employees aren't burned out, that they're happy at home, they're contributing to the company. So we've done a couple of things. And look, I think we've always had really good work-life balance sort of philosophy, but a couple of things. Our new CEO, Bill Staples, just announced a company-wide holiday. So for a week in August, the whole company gets a week off. And, you know, that's just to sort of say thanks to our people for the hard work that they put in over COVID. We know it wasn't easy. So that's really cool. I'm really excited to hopefully get out of the house. But we do things like just in Sydney, we've implemented a no meetings Friday sort of situation where people can use that time for professional development and to upskill and to connect with their colleagues. So, you know, no external meetings, sort of just giving them time for a bit of introspection. And then also, you know, sort of, I guess, you know, it's not a set like a official policy, but we have a unspoken sort of thing that we don't Slack people or contact them after hours unless it's really urgent. You might give someone a call, but you know, just trying to protect that time and protect people's you know, boundaries and time with their families.
That's wonderful. Michael, how about you? What's your experience been?
Yeah, I mean, at the risk of overplugging how good our parental leave policy is, I just thought it was great that you know, as a father, a new father, it suited me not to have to take that full 12 weeks in one block, and just, you know, something like just being able to kind of take that in smaller chunks, or you know, even kind of a week here or there over the course of the child's first year, was really good. So yeah, I think Bridie's kind of captured everything else around everything that's kind of going on in and around the COVID situation with burnout and the company really recognizing that. There's also just, pretty cool random initiatives like local management will approve just a regional kind of, vacation day or whatever from time to time. It's probably happened a couple of times since I've been here, and I've been here for a bit over a year, where it's just recognition of the good work that the whole region's doing. So, it might just be an Australia only thing, or an Asia Pacific and Japan kind of thing. But yeah, just stuff like that. It's good to know that the company's kind of thinking about you as an employee, and how hard you might be working. And sometimes we forget that we're so deep in it that we don't realize that we need a break. So that it's good that they recognize that for us.
Yeah, that's wonderful and really invaluable in a lot of ways. Because you're right, it's one thing to realize that personally, like, I'm feeling kind of burnt out and that sucks, but it's quite another to hear from the top down, like, we're concerned about this for you. So let's make sure everybody takes a break. It feels, at least from like the terrible American workaholic mindset, it feels like a lot more freeing and acceptable to take that time than to be the person that stands up and is like, I'm not doing well. Can we like take a breather here? So yeah. All right. So to close us out here, I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see some of this information. So these were all questions that we asked of Bridie and Michael prior to today's session. Now, some of them are kind of self-explanatory, but the one that I really want to highlight is your top tips for someone who's interviewing. So Michael, would you like to start off with some of your tips, and then we can go to Bridie?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, for someone's his interview, I think, yeah, just being really kind of honest and being yourself. Like, you wouldn't want to work for an organization where you couldn't really bring yourself to work. I know it's a bit of a cliche that's thrown around in, talent and HR circles, but I really genuinely agree with that. You want to be able to feel like you can be authentic at work. So I always get a really kind of positive vibe straight away when the first interview is framed less as an interview, but it's also kind of almost a getting to know you session, and whether or not you're going to even be a cultural fit. Um, so that's kind of a real big one for me.
Yeah, that's great. Bridie, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with that, Michael. And I think these were my words. Know your own story, what makes you unique, and how can you like sort of fit in to help us reach the next phase of our growth. But I also think, like, just practically, go on, read our customer stories online. There's some really great ones there. Really understand what problems do we solve for our customers, and how do we help them, because that's really what the business we're in, which is to be customer obsessed and to help our customers achieve their goals. So that would be my advice.
Excellent. All right, so I know we have a couple other New Relic team members on the line here. So one of the questions we got asked a lot was about what the interview process looks like at New Relic. So Sinead or Yenny, would either of you like to jump in on this?
Yeah, I can jump in. I think it obviously depends, like, from role to role and what type of or what part of the organization you're interviewing with. But generally, we try and have like anyone new that's coming on board or might be joining the team, to meet with some of the leadership team, some of the team that they'll be working alongside day to day, and then just more people from like a culture perspective as well. I think someone mentioned it earlier that the interview process is two-sided. It's as much about this person evaluating New Relic as vice versa. So we always like to give them quite a mixed slate of the people that they can meet with. So yeah, that they get like a really good understanding of New Relic from a few different perspectives. So yeah, it's generally like 4 to 5 rounds. Yeah, and try to get through it pretty quickly. But yeah, that's generally what it looks like.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So we have a slide up here that's got some of the open roles at New Relic that we wanted to highlight for y'all. I'm going to share the link here to where you can check out the full descriptions of these these jobs. I also want to highlight for people that are asking in the chat, everyone will get a link in an email about 1 to 2 business days with a link to where you can watch the recording of today's session, or you can head over to our YouTube channel in about 5 to 15 minutes, and you'll see the video posted there as well. So are there any, any roles here or anything else that y'all would like to highlight before we say goodbye for the day?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, for anyone that's on the call or anyone watching the recording, you can reach out to Yenny or I, just even if there isn't a role on here that's suitable. I think, yeah, it's always good to connect early, and yeah, just start talking about what types of opportunities you'd be looking for. So yeah, feel free to reach out to us.
Do you prefer reaching out on like LinkedIn or something, or is there like an email box they should email?
Yeah, LinkedIn is perfect. Yeah, I think Parental will be able to share our details as well with anyone that's joined or anyone that's watching the recording. So yeah, it's perfect.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, so that rounds us out for today. But I just want to say a huge thank you to Bridie, Michael, Sinead, and Yenny, and everyone from the New Relic team that helped make today possible. I know it's not just the time that you spend with us right now. There's all kinds of prep time that usually people put into this. So thank you all so much for that. We're so happy to have you join us today and share your experiences with our community.
Thanks, Meg.
Thanks, Meg. Thanks for the opportunity.
Everyone.
Cheers.
All right, so a huge thank you as well to our attendees. Y'all had some really awesome questions in advance of today's session, so that was really appreciated. We can't wait to see you join us on some future events that we've got going on. Next week is our virtual summit. It's Tech for Social Impact. So hopefully you guys will join us for that. There's also a job fair at the end of the week. And then we've got a ton of great chats happening throughout the rest of July and into August. So check out our upcoming events list. I'll throw that link in the chat as well. And hopefully we'll see many more of you joining us on future events. So I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, whether it is Thursday or Friday, wherever you are. And yeah, we'll hopefully see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
All right.